U.S. exports fell 6%. What is that telling us? Well, that's telling us, obviously, that's hurting our economy, right? We're exporting less goods, which means there are less people, fewer people, buying American goods overseas. Meanwhile, imports ticked up a bit by 0.7%. Instead of falling, last look at GDP, it said that it had fallen, imports fell 1.4%. Now, I remember that very specifically because I said, well, that's good news in the number. Well, guess what? So much for that. Now I have to retract what I said was good news because now we're seeing that it actually rose. But here's the number that is, speaking of lack of correlation. So we've got a GDP first quarter down right now, a negative. It's a negative. It's contracting. The economy is contracting. It's getting smaller. Down 1%. Consumer spending, excuse me. I'm sorry, I got something going on in my throat here. Consumer spending up 3.1%. Are you serious? How is it possible that in an economy that's driven by consumer spending and consumer spending being up 3.1%, how is it possible that we could have a negative GDP growth? How's that possible? Well, apparently it's very possible, and I'll tell you why. That 3.1% consumer spending is on gasoline and healthcare. Now, all of this to say that we changed the way that we calculate GDP. So if we were calculating GDP the old way, the way we had for 40 years, we would probably be more like a negative 2% or 2.5% in the economy. So even when the numbers don't work, change the way you calculate, mentality of the government, even though we have that, we're still down 1%. That tells me that the economy is a lot worse than they had thought. And it also tells me that when the Commerce Department decided to add all these other things into the way we calculate GDP, they should have added healthcare expenses, and we'd have a positive GDP growth. So don't be surprised if that happens sooner rather than later.